Okay, good evening, everyone. Good evening. We would like to get started tonight. I'd like to welcome you all to tonight's regular meeting of Council. And as we begin, I wish to acknowledge that we are meeting on the territory of the Sauk Nation. We honor and respect their government, as well as their long-standing relationship with the lands and waters that continue to this day. And as we begin, I just have a few announcements that I would like to share with you. Earlier today at the 17 Mile, our MLA Premier Horgan and Minister Claire Tervana announced $85 million of infrastructure work for Highway 14. The work, $30,233,000 has been committed from the federal government, and the remaining $55,482,000 will be from the province of BC. The work will include a new 4-lane section, roughly 1.5 kilometer median section with shoulders to go from Connie to Glints Lake Road. And they will be establishing a new park and ride on Gillespie. And they're also doing, some of this funding will go towards wider shoulders westward of us on Otter Point at Woodhaven Road. So for more details, you can go on to the province of BC, and if you go add in under search Highway 14, you'll see all the updates there on the funding. There's a concept design and the like, and it will all go there. So that was very exciting for us to have such a substantial amount of funding allocated to our community. As such, we do have a project meeting set for this coming Friday, and I have reached out to councillors to assist with some of the work that's coming our way. So Councillor Megan McMath will be our council liaison to Highway 14 in the ministry. So thank you, Councillor McMath. So what that means, though, Councillor, is as we receive emails from residents, I've just advised staff that if they have concerns, they should address them to our MLA and to CC both of us on the email so that we can just hear what some of the concerns are and what advocacy efforts we need to take going forward. Councillors that sit on both the Juan de Fuca Water Distribution as well as the Water Commission will need to take an advocacy position on behalf of the residents that would be impacted there. A lot of this comes for piped water. So let's discuss at our next meeting what sort of notice of motion, what sort of outreach we can do, and we'll do that there. In the meantime, I have already begun gathering some information on this. I've heard it's about $4 million to have water extended to North Sooke. We know that's something long before the area residents have been looking for, so this is probably our chance to look at making that happen. As you all know, Sooke-a-rama will be held this Saturday at Sea Park from 10 to 4. The District of Sooke is partnering with our local Sooke Lions Club for this exciting event. It's a great way to kick off our 20th anniversary celebrations. So we hope to see you all there. We have some exciting swag items that we will be handing out. And councillors will be there in shifts to talk about some of the exciting things happening at the district. Tomorrow, at the United Way luncheon, our district QP staff and IAFF staff have been nominated for awards. So congratulations to our staff. And just so everyone knows, about $120,000 comes our way annually to different Sooke organizations on behalf of the United Way. So many thanks to staff for their quiet leadership on this work. Councillor Bateman will be attending the CRD Parks and Environment meeting on my behalf so that I can attend the luncheon. And just so you know, we do have Committee of the Holes scheduled for both May the 6th and Tuesday, May 21st. Some of the items would be to debrief our recent Association of Vancouver Island Coastal Communities conference and to also discuss the upcoming Federation of Canadian Municipalities conference. Our committee structure, council procedural bylaw, memorial wall and policy, et cetera, et cetera. So we've added in the 2 meetings for that to happen. So on that note, we will get into tonight's agenda. Stay tuned for more exciting announcements. This is a really busy week, actually. Okay, so we do have an agenda in front of us tonight. So we have a few amendments, and that is that item 7.1, the zoning amendment bylaw number 729-600-68-2019, 2489 Otter Point Road, to be moved to immediately following adoption of the minutes. And then we also have the addition of 2 notice of motions, one from Councillor Beddoes regarding community garbage collection, as well as one from Councillor St. Pierre regarding public parking opportunities. So those will be posted up on the screen when we get to those, and they're just here for notice tonight. So if I could have a motion to approve the agenda with those amendments, please. Moved by Councillor Beddoes and seconded by Councillor Logans. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? That's carried unanimously. Next up are minutes from April 23rd, 2019 regular meeting to be adopted as circulated. Motion to adopt by Councillor St. Pierre and seconded by Councillor Logans. Discussion on the minutes? Councillor Bateman.
Yeah, I do have
microphone.
To always do have one correction to the minutes on page 13, the minutes of April 8th, 2019. It's under my council verbal report. The third item, meeting with Sooke's age-friendly committee to plan next steps in an attempt to secure local driving rests for seniors, which is not a bad idea, but I think it's tests. Tests for seniors. Otherwise, immaculate work by
Thank you very much for catching that, Councillor Bateman. I suppose. Okay. So on that note then, we'll move into, we've moved item 7.1. So bylaw 729, zoning amendment for 2489. I'll turn that over to staff for a presentation, please.
Thank you, Your Worship, Council. I'm here representing Tanisha Everts, who is the planner on this file but is on vacation right now. Got it. So the applicant for this is proposing to amend the zoning of a 2-hectare parcel at 2489 Otter Point Road from rural residential RU4 to neighborhood rural residential RU5 for the purpose of creating 7 strata lots approximately 2,500 square meters in size. The 2-hectare property is located on the eastern side of Otter Point Road and is designated community residential in the OCP. The property is is also located within the community growth area. All land within the red boundary on the map is located within the community growth area, and the community residential designation is where the OCP anticipates low to medium density residential growth along with appropriately scaled commercial development. Although within the community growth boundary, the site is outside the sewer specified area and therefore the lots will be on septic. The blow up on the lower right corner of the screen is just to give you a closer view of where the blue line is for the sewer catchment area, and then the red line is the community growth boundary. The subject property is highlighted on, in the red in the overlay map. The creation of large residential lots in the northern area of the community residential land use designation and within the community growth area is supported in the OCP. So the map to the right on the screen is to depict a bit of the context of the surrounding area. So the directly adjacent, the land uses are rural residential RU4 and small-scale agricultural RU3. Other surrounding land uses include large lot residential R1 and medium lot residential R2. For further context, across the street is a more dense development pattern of RU4 with much smaller lots than what is proposed with this RU5 rezoning. The applicant is proposing to amend the zoning of the property from RU4 to RU5. The key differences noted on the table on the slide, mostly being the minimum lot size. The RU4 zone has a minimum lot size of 1 hectare or 10,000 square meters, while the RU5 zone has a minimum of 2,500 square meters. This is the conceptual lot layout. You're here to consider the zoning, but for further detail, this is what the concept that they're proposing. It's all strata lots, 7 of them, with a single access off of Otter Point. It's a 10-meter wide common access driveway. And the applicant is proposing to provide a 7.5-meter wide buffer adjacent the ALR to the right of the screen. The buffer has been it's the part in yellow on the screen. Access to the property, as I noted, off Otter Point Cash in lieu will be required for resurfacing of Otter Point to the center line, including the shoulder remediation and a provision of a 3-meter wide multi-use trail. No driveways are permitted onto Otter Point, and all future lots will be accessed from the internal common access road. It's also recommended that cash in lieu for parkland dedication be required at time of subdivision. This recommendation is based on the goals and objectives of the OCP, the context of the property, and the proximity of existing parks. There are 3 parks within a 5-minute walking from this site. I think it's Burr Park, Foreman Heights, and Broomhill Park. Cash in lieu is proposed for the affordable housing contribution. The applicant is proposing $21,000, which works out to $3,000 per unit of the 7 units to go to the bylaw number 259 Housing Reserve Fund Establishment Bylaw. The applicant is here with their representative and does wish to address council. This concludes my presentation.
Okay, thank you. Perhaps I'll welcome the applicant up to give any comments to council, and then after that we can hear, I'll ask council if they have any questions on this. And if you could please just turn on the microphone, sir, so we can all hear you.
Right here? Can you hear me?
Yep, that's great. Thank you.
Okay. Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Don Thome. I'm a realtor with Sutton West Coast Realty, and I'm here along with Phil Buchanan of J.E. Anderson Engineering Firm, representing BYLAWS Estates, the owner of the 5-acre parcel, just shy of the 5-acre parcel there on Otter Point Road. We felt that it was appropriate for me to say a few words, just to give you a little bit of a background and idea of who BYLAWS Estates are and what they have done in the past. They've worked most successfully, oftentimes with Phil Buchanan of J.E. Anderson, and they have done developments in Langford, Colwood, and in View Royal. They did own a 6-acre parcel in Sooke in the ALR for many years, and they subsequently disposed of it, sold it in 2016. They have had a good, as I said earlier, they had a good working relationship with J.E. Anderson, and have had experience in doing these types of developments, and therefore Mr. Buchanan was solicited to represent them in this endeavor, in this project here in the south. Myself and Mr. Buchanan have worked closely with the staff here at Sooke, and resulting in the municipality rezoning requirements. Many of the rezoning requirements of the municipality have already been satisfied, as will be attested to in the submission by Tanisha and Ivy. So, in conclusion, really don't have much more to say. Certainly will answer some questions, but BYLAWS Estates Limited surely sincerely hopes that you look favorably on this rezoning request, which will eventually result in 7 new taxpayers in the area once the development is completed. Mr. Buchanan and myself would be happy to answer any questions or concerns you might have at this time.
Okay, thank you very much. Are there any questions from members of council about the proposal? Councillor St. Pierre?
I noticed in the paperwork that was submitted that there's the intent to have some duplexes and secondary suites. And I was curious as to what the price point might be for the duplexes. Do you have any idea what that might look like?
No, I really don't. I've done some work up on that, but I'm yet to be finished as to what the end result will be. It's an ever-changing marketplace, you can appreciate, Councillor. No, we're really looking more at what the land value and then the housing construction costs on top of that. So I would really be, depending on what you're building, so that would be a bit of an open situation there.
So it sounds like the duplexes are not necessarily set in stone, that we're potentially just looking at what the market will bear. Is that the idea? Or?
Yes, yeah, we'll be looking at, certainly the RU5 zoning does allow 4 suites, secondary suites. As a matter of fact, even a separate dwelling, as a matter of fact. That would be undertaken for sure. And
Thank you.
the cost would be accordingly.
Okay, Councillor Bateman?
Yes, through you, Your Worship, to our head planner. So the current zoning, RU4 at 10,000 meters squared over 2 hectares would allow 2 homes. Is that correct?
It would allow 2 lots.
2 lots?
Yes.
Okay.
So you can have a small detached dwelling as well, in a secondary or a secondary suite.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions from members of council to either the applicant's representative or staff? Okay. See none? Okay. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Okay, so I'll proceed into the public hearing. I just have this statement to open up with here. Okay, this public hearing is being held pursuant to the Local Government Act. At this public hearing, any person who believes that their interest in property is affected by the proposed bylaw will be given a reasonable opportunity to be heard or to present written submissions respecting matters contained in the bylaw that are the subject of this hearing. Copies of written submissions received to date are available, and there is one in the yellow materials. It is important that all who speak at this hearing restrict their remarks to matters contained in the bylaw, and it is my responsibility as chair of this hearing to ensure that all remarks are so restricted. For those of you who wish to speak at the appropriate time, please commence your address to council by clearly stating your name and address. Then you may give us the benefit of your views concerning the proposed bylaw. Submissions must be received before or during the public hearing in order to be considered by council. Members of council may, if they so wish, ask questions of you following your presentation or submission. However, the main function of council members this evening is to listen to the views of the public. It is not the function of council at this hearing to debate the merits of the proposed bylaw with individual citizens. Everyone who deems his or her interest in property to be affected shall be given the opportunity to be heard at this hearing, and no one will be or should feel discouraged or preventing from making his or her views known. Please note that this hearing forms part of tonight's regular meeting of council and as such is being video recorded. Videos and their contents, including any personal information disclosed during the hearing, will be posted and remain on the district's website. So on that note, I wish to welcome anyone who would like to address council to please come forward for 2489 Otter Point Road. And if you could please just turn on the microphone, sir, so we can hear you.
Oh, there we go. Thank you. Good evening, Mayor, Council. This is my first time in here, so excuse my blunt. My name is Jim Spafford. I live at 2517 Otter Point Road, directly next to the proposed development. Where do I put my thoughts in here? My family originally moved here in 1968. We actually owned that place before we subdivided and then moved to where we are now. We've seen a succession of owners and renters and over the years. Some logged. We moved here originally to sort of get away from the subdivision style living. We sort of had an informal agreement. Well, I don't know, informal. Nobody really wanted to have neighbors right next door to them, which is the reason why we moved here. I'm not against progress. Sooke is growing by leaps and bounds, and I've seen a lot of different traffic issues and everything else. Not really thrilled about having 7 places right next door, but I'm only one person, so. All the extra noise and everything else, which is not really the reason why we moved here in the first place. What do I say here? The surveyors that were sort of surveying the place, if I followed their original line, the front terminus would be half in the middle of my property on the road. So they have stakes probably 15 to 20 feet on where we originally had the line. So I would imagine have to be surveyed again at some point, or I'm going to have to do my own, fund my own surveying place, because we originally built the fence where we could actually see from one end of the place to the other. In the last 50 years, things have grown up considerably. The fence, however, has not changed more than 2 or 3 inches either way. Seeing this, in the back of the property, there's been paintball and all kinds of different things going on in there. I don't know about soil contamination. I'm not an environmental type person. Well, I am and I'm not, so I don't do perk tests and everything else. I'm an automotive mechanic, so I fix cars for a living. I don't have much more to say. Any comments from council? Anything else? Okay. I'm not. Oh.
Councillor Beddoes?
Yeah, maybe staff, if you could put up the plan of the subdivision. Yeah, there. Where, right now, I mean, where would your house be located? You see, I assume you're somewhere in that lot layout
would be,
area. That's,
let's see. Second one back, top, probably about.
okay, just somewhere around there.
Back. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Can I walk up there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The reason. Yeah, go ahead. Okay. Okay. So you're quite a ways back yourself, then, eh? Okay. Wow. Wow. Okay. The reason I asked is, I read your letter, and you've been quite concerned with what's been going on over there in the last number of years, and the state of the thing, and fires burning and all that sort of stuff. So when I see a subdivision of this size with very large lots compared to what's other things going, I see this is probably a little bit better than what you're used to. But that's what sort of has me puzzled a bit. I understand. But if you're going to be impacted, maybe 1 or 2 of those neighbors, it's got to be better than what you have now.
There is that.
Yeah. Okay.
Where they get rid of all the shouting and screaming and
let's hope
on.
That if this goes through, that the neighbors that you have in the future, if this goes through, I say that
would
be better than what you had before.
Well, yes, there's been a succession of renters there over the years. And I'm not quite sure when the existing owners purchased it, but
I was quite sympathetic to your letter and what you've gone through, and I can understand your concerns about neighbors.
I lost count, probably about 9 different owners since we sold it originally.
Okay, well, I thank you for your input today.
I still remember living in the house, although I was like 4.5 years old when I was there.
Well, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Spafford. Sorry, sir, if you could come to the microphone, and we can have you up again after we hear. There may be other concerns from the public. Sorry, but you can't yell. But you're more than welcome to come up to the microphone. But let's just see if there's some other questions, and you can address them all at once. Okay, are there other residents or any member of the public that would like to speak on the rezoning for 2489 Otter Point Road, please? Okay, so I'll call for a second time. Any residents on 2489 Otter Point Road? A third and final time for 2489. Would you come on up, sir, if you want to state your comment?
I was just going to say that the current owners have owned the property since 1976, and it is a small home on the property currently, and they have rented it out the entire time.
Okay.
So I don't know how many tenants there's been over the years, but that's how long they've owned it, since 1976.
Got it. Okay, thank you very much for that clarity. So hearing nothing else from members of the public, we'll now close the public hearing and turn the matter back to staff, or pardon me, to council. So we have already passed first and second readings, so now looking to council to consider third reading of the bylaw. Councillor Bateman?
So passing first and second reading is the prelude to having a public hearing of this kind. So it's a good thing.
Yes.
Right? So it's not necessarily a sign that we are on side with this. Now, I have no problem with applications of this kind. I find the problem is that in the here and now of April 2019, when we are entering into a period of investigation and exploration and process leading to our new official community plan, this is premature to be granting an upzoning here from 2 allowable lots to 7 at this time. Currently, there are approximately 1,600 new single-family, townhouse, and low-rise apartment homes in the works for Sooke. These are ready to roll, and they will be rolled out over the next 2 to 3 years. We currently, I don't know, driving around town of late, it's felt chaotic to me as a Sooke resident of 15 years. And, I campaigned on this idea of that we need to pause for the short term until we figure out where this community is going and growing. This indeed is in the community growth area. 2 homes would constitute growth as allowable under the current zoning. 7 would constitute a different kind of growth. And I'm not sure we as a community have determined yet what that kind of growth needs to be. Some other issues I have, for reasons I'll be voting no to this tonight. Otter Point Road is unimproved at the moment. Essentially, upzoning at this point in time, I would hope that the applicant would be patient, see how our OCP process goes, our transportation master plan, what it reveals, and within X amount of years, I would think, a couple, it would be a very different climate, at least in my own mind, to assessing an application of this kind. So that's it from me. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Beddoes?
Yeah, I disagree with Councillor Bateman. I think we have to deal with the here and now. We have a community plan in place. I know it's a bit outdated, but I think in order to wait 2-3 years before we have another one finalized would be an awful long wait. And it is in the community growth area. I think when I see lots, if there were 27 crammed into that space, I would be voting against it. But this is, to me, a reasonable one. I am a little concerned for the neighbor. For him to come here and speak like that does carry weight with me. But I think this is a good development. I think it's the setbacks are good. They're fairly large lots, and I'll be voting for this.
Councillor St. Pierre.
I think that at this point in time, this council is still working on determining the shape of things with its strategic plan, with the OCP and so on and so forth. But I do think we do have an OCP in place that does indicate that it would be a growth area. I think that it's outside of our sewer service. Septic fields make sense. We can't actually densify towards things like apartments or larger density, which is actually what I would in some ways prefer, simply because of access to transit and so on and so forth. One of the things I would like to see, mind you, in the future, and this is one of the reasons why I would agree with Councillor Bateman, is that I think we need to be looking at electrifying, looking at EV charging stations when we put in a development of this type. 7 homes, that's 2 EV stations, that's some electric cars. We can actually have a decentralized storage there. it makes sense to do this, but we don't have the tools in place as of yet to do this. I don't know if we can just put the finger in the dike and wait for the tools to appear or for us to create them, which is why I will likely vote for, but I haven't yet heard what everyone else has to say.
Okay, so some comments. We do have an OCP, and until a new one is adopted, the existing one prevails. Community growth area is one that's been established for quite some time, and that becomes a tool where water will flow to. So in this case, there is going to be CRD. The CRD has examined this and has agreed to the extension of pipe water, and that comes from a long debate through the regional sustainability strategy, where we've advocated for water for a long time. The last strategy was adopted in 2003, and then it was adopted last year in 2018. So there is water, which is essential infrastructure, and we've heard that it's outside our sewer specified area, so in that case the septic fields do come in. So there is that mechanism. I support what the councillors say. I'm not comfortable just stalling all development until we adopt an OCP. We're a community that's growing and evolving, and we need a variety of housing mixes to accommodate everyone. These are larger rural properties that would appeal to some versus like something much smaller in other areas within Sooke, so it would provide a spectrum of housing. So I'm in support of the application as it's been presented here. I think that the neighbor has legitimate concerns with some of the disturbances that they've endured over the years, but I tend to agree that once some area of development, there's people living there, they would have eyes on their neighborhood as well. We have, an increase in bylaw enforcement that would deal with some of the nuisance complaints and the like, and so I don't see a reason to not support this application. So I'm looking to council, if nothing further, for someone to move third reading to the bylaw. Okay, so are you moving third reading?
One more comment.
Okay, so if you want to turn on your microphone, Councillor St. Pierre, I'll recognize you.
Thank you.
Mike.
I just wanted to comment further on the affordable housing piece because that's actually been near and dear. I appreciate that the applicants have actually increased the amount of cash in lieu by triple. I still feel that this doesn't actually address affordable housing, which is why I was asking about the duplexes. I understand that once the zoning is changed, and everyone should understand once the zoning is changed, we have no power to hold the owners from selling or changing or from anything changing. We might not have duplexes. We don't actually have the tools in place for this sort of thing. So that's something we need to explore, how to actually get affordable housing happening. Ideally, we'll have developers that are interested in meeting our community's needs for affordable housing. And their contribution could actually be building housing that's not at different levels, not simply affordable as in under 30% of the lowest income, but really at all different levels. But that's not a tool we have in place either. So I look forward to when we can actually get this sort of thing in place. In the meanwhile, I really appreciate the fact that they're working on this with us.
Okay, so the recommendation is that Council give third reading to the bylaw cited as zoning amendment bylaw number 729, 600-68, 2019. We have a mover, moved by Councillor McMath and seconded by Councillor Logans. Anything further on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Councillor Bateman is opposed. The motion carries. Okay, thank you, everyone. So we will move on into our delegation. So we have two tonight, and we have 5 minutes allocated to each presentation. So first up, I'd like to welcome Brian White with a proposal for baseline on Sooke from Royal Roads University. Welcome, Mr. White.
That one. Got it. Okay. Thank you very much. I appreciate you calling me Brain White.
Yes.
Oh, no, don't be sorry. I need all the help I can get, As we've heard, by the way, I live at 1610 Covey Run Road in East Sooke. So I'd like to congratulate you on the recent upgrade to the highway, and I'm thinking of cancelling my extended life insurance once it gets put in place. I'm just going to read this. The District of Sooke is in the process of updating its official community plan. In discussions with Jeff Bateman and a member of the Municipal Council, interest was expressed in the development of a baseline report that brings together social, cultural, economic, and environmental information about Sooke to inform a revised OCP. One example of such a report is the vital signs, which is common across Canada in communities which have a community foundation. A national initiative which is designed to connect philanthropy to community needs and opportunities. The Vital Signs Report is an annual snapshot that measures the vitality of a community or region using a combination of citizen opinion data and curated secondary data. The choice of secondary data is informed by several frameworks, including quality of life, determinants of health, and sustainable development. In discussions earlier, we heard about issues with infrastructure, affordable housing, which are critical to all communities, but particularly to Sooke. Just so you know, my PhD is in geography, human geography, and a lot of my work has been in parks and regional planning. Two Vancouver Island examples, which you might want to look at, are Victoria's Vital Signs Report. This is the Greater Victoria region, which is produced annually by the Victoria Foundation. And secondly, the Clayoquot Sound Biosphere Region's Vital Signs, produced every 2 years by the Clayoquot Biosphere Trust. Both reports present data at the regional level. Where possible, the Clayoquot Sound Biosphere Region's Vital Signs Report also presents community-level data, i.e. for Tofino, Ucluelet, and several First Nations communities such as Ahousaht. Although the catchment area for Victoria's Vital Signs includes the 13 municipalities and 3 electoral areas of the Capital Regional District, the report intentionally does not provide data at the municipal level. This presents an opportunity for Sooke to create its own municipal profile. Recently, just as an addition, this just came out last week, the South Island Prosperity Index, SEPP, has been produced, which also has that regional perspective in terms of the relative prosperity of different communities in the region. While the Vital Signs Initiative and all identifiers are proprietary and can only be used by community foundations, the report is a good example of how to use secondary data and community knowledge to create a local profile. A baseline report for Sooke could inform the development of key priorities for a revised OCP and assess progress on those priorities going forward, particularly under the circumstances with the current OCP being a little bit old. A Sooke community profile that presents the most recently available data on a range of demographic, social, cultural, economic, and environmental metrics can be assembled from existing data sources and local knowledge keepers. Current studies conducted by the municipality into affordable housing obviously would also be part of the thing. Also health is a major focus of Vital Signs, is looking at community health. Royal Roads University has one of its key mandates of sustainable communities, livelihoods, and the environment. And a baseline research initiative for Sooke could involve faculty and graduate students. Additionally, the consultant who works with the Victoria Foundation and has done for a few years on the Vital Signs Report could also be retained to support and assist with this particular project. This, by the way, has the support of Steve Grundy, a local resident, I might add, who's the vice president, and who is quite enthusiastic about supporting this kind of initiative. Just as a little bit of background, to just conclude, some of you in the audience and the council are probably aware that for the last, I think, 4 years we've provided research for Sooke and now last year for the West Shore in general, which could be contributed. This report, just to conclude, the students will be working on this now. I've been restricted and not allowed to go from July all the way through to November to get the report ready. I've only got 4 months, okay? So the idea is that we would lead up to this with faculty, possibly with consultants, working with your planning and with council, up to the point where we'd actually do additional fill-in material with the students doing research between January and April in 2020. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you,
Brain
White. Brian White. So just for clarity here, so you'd be looking to start in 2020?
No,
July.
Soon.
Starting July for 4 months.
No. We start in July, this coming July.
Right.
And we go all the way through to April 2020.
I see. Okay.
Now, what I'm saying is I can't get the students involved, or I will in a clandestine fashion, okay? But, you know, I can't really get them seriously involved until they actually take the course.
Right.
Okay? So then I can have greater authority over what they do. So then I...
Got it. Okay. And then I'm wondering, is there a cost back to the district?
Yes.
Okay.
And this is something which we'd have to discuss. It's
Okay.
not. Here's a situation where, in essence, you'd have a subsidy. By the way, Steve has talked me into giving up one of my research grants in support of this. Anyway, which is fine. That's okay. Good idea. So there will be some support from Royal Road, but that won't be a substantial amount. If you have to get a consultant in, or you have to have people involved as to coordinate this and provide that facility, might be something that we'd have to discuss with council and with your planning department. However, I believe that Steve is interested in developing a memorandum, updating the memorandum of understanding that we have to actually facilitate and move some of these things forward.
Okay, so that's no, that helps. Thank you very much, and I really appreciate the work that Royal Roads has done for the district in the past. And just for the benefit of council, Steve Grundy, who Dr. Brian White had referred to, has been involved in Sooke on economic development groups going back probably since I got on council, 2008, maybe even a bit prior to that, and through that time period. So when we've had different working groups. Steve Grundy was involved, and Brian White as well. So some ideas here. In some ways, this feels like this. Parts of it could be used towards an OCP, but other parts would be used for economic development strategies. Some of it, when we had to do advocacy work with health, for example, we had to go inform sort of our own health indicators and have that data. And so a tremendous amount of work was committed by Island Health and our local doctors in order for us to have that, which then has helped for advocacy purposes. So I'll see if there's questions from council, but what I'm sort of looking for is maybe a resolution that we ask our staff to connect with Brian White to then sort of just come up with just some steps in terms of how would this fit with an OCP or not, or what other strategies are we looking for that we could use it for. Having local-based information is extremely helpful, because often when things are done in a region, there could be a paragraph then that is allocated to Sooke that answers this. But because of our separation from the core, often we have a need to have our own demographic, and it's sort of timely for us to build up our own set of facts that we can use for different things. So I'd be looking more to have an understanding of just what staff availability would look like, what sort of funding we would need to commit from probably contingency in this part, so that we could then see where it all folds through. So I'll go to Councillor Beddoes.
Yeah, Mr. White, my concern is it's still pretty vague. But what sort of staff time would you expect? I mean, you've done these projects before, and our staff is stretched pretty thin as it is. So do you have any sort of a number in your head of how many hours of staff time would be involved with your students to lay this out?
By the time the students get involved, it'll be way down the road. Much of the work that has to be done is the assemblage and organization of curated material. In other words, material which is put together and it's already in existence. It's already out there. You don't have to go and collect it. The actual work that the students would do would be actually later, and which would be fill-in material or fill-in questionnaires, filling in interview activities. And by the way, this is not just about tourism. This is a baseline study. This would come later on. As far as staff time, we'd have to talk about that. I think that's one of the reasons I suggested that a consultant be brought in, particularly to provide that focused and specific opportunity for the community. This is what happened in Tofino. I did my doctorate on Clayoquot Sound in Tofino several years ago, so I know how it works.
You've answered that. Well, I still don't know, but I mean, you've given me the explanation. Now, you said farther down the road, we're at our strategic planning, we're going to be pushing ahead on the renewal of the OCP. So I need to know roughly from you, what does down the road mean? Is that 2 months, 6 months, a year,
No.
2 years?
The suggestion is to start work on this in the summertime.
But that's when do the students get involved?
Students don't get involved until they do the fill-in work in next January.
All right, so that's what I'm sort of after.
right.
So this thing would sort of start roughly in July, and then they wouldn't come into play till January, and that's when the staff would be involved more?
No, I think the staff would have to be involved well before
in
that.
July, eh?
Yes, but I think the most important thing here, based on my experience, I did a lot of work in North Vancouver, and one of the things you have to do is don't preempt the staff in terms of their expectation of what is likely to be involved. Most of the time, there's no question it's stretched, but the idea is not to stretch it further, is to provide some supplementary opportunities to help support the staff.
So what would you be looking for us tonight? I'm not quite clear as to, I mean, it all sounds weird and wonderful, but you need some sort of commitment. You said hiring a consultant, first of all. So
Okay.
what are you looking for?
I'll jump in here on
Yeah,
this
sure,
one. It would be what we would be looking for potentially is a resolution. I'm sort of drafting one as we speak that would then have. Well, I'll sort of read it out. Council directs staff to provide a report to Council on funding Council and staff resources needed to work with Royal Roads University on the development of a baseline report. Something of that nature would be basically Council giving permission, asking staff to work with Brian White to develop that, and then it'll come back to us, and then we'll see what the budget implication is, what the resources are, and we can make a more informed decision and get more information on that. So that answers that. I'll just go to councillors for a few other questions. Councillor Logans and St. Pierre, please.
Thank you for coming tonight. I'm a bit concerned that one of your best examples is the vital signs report, because that was based off of 1,800 people in a population area of 86,000. So I think in the report itself it says that the sample is basically irrelevant to actually what it says, let's see. The relationship of the sample to the overall population is not known. So that survey in itself.
That's one of the reasons I think the baseline, I don't call it a vital signs report, it's a baseline study. And you wouldn't necessarily be pulling in only material which was pulled out of the Victoria one. I've heard a lot of criticism of the Victoria study. I've heard a lot less criticism of the one in Clayoquot Sound.
So the Victoria study has been happening for probably over a decade.
That's right, yeah.
Now, how do you suppose you're going to do it better than the Victoria Foundation?
I've got a smaller sample size and a much more focused set of information, potentially out of Sooke. The question I still have, which is rolling around in my head, is whether or not it should be Sooke and region, because that's a more difficult thing. I would tend to just stick within Sooke itself, very specifically. And where one of the things I'd like to do is to get fill-in information towards the end where we're seeing gaps and places where we don't have that kind of detailed explanation of what's going on. Starting with real estate, looking at infrastructure implications, looking at affordable housing, looking at healthcare, all those kinds of things. I think we can make a good move forward on that. The major thing is that I was just up in a place like Sydney recently and looking at their official community plan, some of the things they've done, and they have a lot of the baseline information which Sooke doesn't have. And I'm suggesting that this at least will be a step forward. It may not be perfect, it may not be ideal. What we might end up with when I come back with a proposal is a set of scenarios. You can have this level, this one, or this one. And that would be something that you could make a choice about yourselves and provide, a fair bit of guidance on it.
So our affordable housing report would be coming out.
Yes.
The request for proposal is still open. What is your plan to work alongside the consultant, to apply to be the consultant, or to do work before it's done?
No, I'm way too old to be a consultant again. I haven't got my blood pressure's too high.
But your name is Brain.
I know. That's helped a lot, but it ain't necessarily true.
Sorry.
But I think what I would do is I'd, whenever you have consultants involved, I worked a fair bit with John Willow, who's been involved with some of the consulting in tourism, so I've known him for 30 years. The point I would make is that most of the time consultants are quite willing to cooperate and help. This is a curation. It's curated. It's bringing together ideas and putting it into something useful to the community. That's what it's about. And I can't say at this point, I'm sorry it's a bit vague. It is a bit vague. Nevertheless, I can't think of any projects that I've done which didn't start out being a bit vague. They usually start out with a, why don't we do this kind of attitude? And then over time you refine it and develop it and decide what's possible and what isn't. And then you work through, and the outcome that I'm seeing in terms of a vision for this is to make sure that it's a complementary element for your official community plan. You've got a period of time to get the official community, the update to the plan done, right? It's what do you got, 18 months or 2 years in it? I'm not sure what the time frame is that you're going to do your update, or if you've decided it yet. But I would think that this would be a great contribution to it.
So that's one of the other things I was going to mention was when you say it's going to be useful to the community, I've done my fair share of presentations in Quebec and Belize and Nanaimo and to the Seashap First Nation in terms of adventure tourism and that sort of thing. But I know that each one of those was useless to those communities, and it was just something that we were doing as a university. To get out into the world and to see what's out there and see, let our imagination work and see where we can push ourselves as students. So I know the tourism reports that you provide for us annually haven't really provided any specific, I guess, development in our policies. So how do you see this being different? Like, what is the actual motivation of this project?
Okay, the motivation of the project is to provide something which is not just student-driven, okay? So it will be faculty-driven, and it will be working in like I said, in a curated situation. The students would come in at the end to do some specific fill-in work. And I think, with respect, that we did make some good recommendations. We had several different projects, and some of the recommendations were valuable, but with the time frame we had and the level of other commitments that they had, it's pretty hard to actually have a really significant influence on face-to-face activities.
Yes,
however,
that's kind of what I'm concerned about.
Yeah, that's right, but they don't kick in till next spring.
Right, and that I'm just not sure that motivation aligns with our other plans and our other consultants.
Understood, but I think what we would have to do is to see where this one would work in with your other plans. I think your health study, you have a housing study going on. What I would suggest is that this presents an idea. You've already got a memorandum of understanding with Royal Roads. There's expertise there, not just in my school, but in other schools as well. And the suggestion is that there's a benefit to having that particular activity in place. I remember myself, I've had over 35 years of consulting experience. I used to be head of the Sunshine Coast Tourism Task Force, for example, for 5 years. So, yeah. So I get consulting pretty well. It's just that I'd rather not have to go out there and do things which don't benefit this community and also our university in terms of a partnership arrangement. And I think that's it. So there has to be a certain degree of trust in this, I think, in the sense that the council and the mayor, you still have the control over what particular level you wish to go to, because we have a scenario. We could do a scenario operation here, set up, and say, okay, well, we can go this far, and you can have, when you set up a project like this, you have a preliminary output. You do a midterm report back during the fall, and then you can do a final report. So there are ways of staging this in an effective fashion. So yeah, and
okay.
it is different than what happened in university.
Yes,
Okay,
I'm just
you.
not sure the timing aligns for me. Sorry.
Council, I just have other councillors that have questions. Councillor St. Pierre and then Councillor Bateman, please.
Hopefully this will be quick. I'm actually looking at a clarification. The baseline study itself, if I understand correctly from the buzzword philanthropy, should potentially give us access to grants and information needed for grants that might not otherwise be available.
That's my understanding, yes.
And I would go further and suggest that you could work with staff in terms of determining which grants are potentially available in shaping the baseline study we might like. Is that possible as well?
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Councillor Bateman?
Yeah, well said, Councillor St. Pierre. That's thank you, Dr. White, for coming forward of your own volition to offer this the opportunity for a baseline report. I think as you were saying in your latter comments there, District of Sooke being able to access the resources of Royal Roads, your expertise, the 25 students from 11 countries, I think you told me, would be involved in this project in the second phase of it. And I think what you're seeking tonight is a go-ahead to develop a fuller proposal.
That's correct.
I would suggest, as opposed to the resolution that's been written there, that we request that Dr. White meet with Ms. Campbell and her OCP planning team and come back to us with a fuller proposal. And there's no obligation on their part at this time, but that would move us along here. Yeah,
right. Yes.
So that's my comment.
Okay, so I just wanted to have a resolution out there so it's something just to think about, but I think what you could add is that council directs staff to prepare a report and develop a proposal would be on the
the way forward. What's it look like? It doesn't have to be something like I'm not suggesting we put together a RFP.
Yeah, and I would just add after Sooke, just take out the period, add a comma for council's consideration. And this way, I do wish to hear, and I'm leaving it as staff as opposed to, so it'll go to our CAO to start and just to initiate who the appropriate staff would be, and for staff to comment as to what elements of it may or may not flow into an OCP. Would it be led more down the way of an economic development strategy or whatever, but just to get that intel, and then we'll have something come back for us to consider. So is someone prepared to move that resolution? Okay, go ahead.
Develop a proposal, but I would like a tiered, like 3 options.
Sure. That's...
So maybe after proposal, add in brackets with options.
Yes, I would do that.
Okay.
In terms of exactly how the options are, that might take some time to emerge and evolve, at least in the consulting projects I've done over the last several years. I mean, that tends to be, it works. You negotiate with the client and you work out exactly what level and what financial investments are going to be taking place.
Okay, thank you. And the reason is that it's also, I think, council could benefit, like what is an OCP and what is it actually as in terms of a planning tool, so that we're not crowding it with things that may or may not fit into it. To our CAO, please.
And Your Worship, I'd just like to note for council that given some of the rather ambitious plans that staff is making at this time in terms of generating an official community plan and trying to begin some preliminary work on a new zoning bylaw, as well as the flow of information and proposals that come in to us on a fairly regular basis at this point. Staff is stretched, as noted, quite thin, and a proposal such as this, and I'm not arguing the benefits or the demerits of it, simply to note for council that at this point doing this means that other things don't get done, because the planning staff consists of, I think at this point 3 planners if we put them all together, and soon to be 2.5. So
yeah, and
it will stretch our resources.
Yeah, I totally hear that, but actually it would be more, I would expect Royal Roads to come back with the proposal as opposed to our staff creating the proposal. I'm going to sort of place that back. So maybe direct staff to... I want staff to prepare the report for council's consideration, but the proposal should actually come from Royal Roads.
Yep, that's what I have in mind.
so that council directs staff to meet with, see, this is what happens when I can't think and write at the same time. Pardon? It hasn't been moved yet, so we're still crafting it, but the intent to meet with Brian White to prepare a report. And yeah, on the development of a baseline. So that sort of takes out the preparation of a proposal out of theirs. That would be what Royal Roads would come back with. So it's just for staff to meet with Brian White of Royal Roads University to provide information for a report on the development of a baseline report for the District of Sooke for Council's consideration. So does that suffice on that? I'm not expecting council staff to actually develop this. It would be more for them to understand what is the budget, how, like, here are the things that we are already doing. What more or less would this be to enhance that work? But then we need to come back and find out realistically how would this fit in with our timeline, how does it meet with our budget, and is it something we can even take on this year? And that's the part I need to hear back from staff, but also hearing from yourself and Royal Roads what that contribution is, and really what is your expectation of council and staff time and resources. Okay. Sounds good. Is someone prepared to move this motion? Moved by Councillor McMath, seconded by Councillor St. Pierre. Questions, Councillor Beddoes?
Yeah, I'm very much opposed to this motion. I think we heard from our CAO, and he said that this would tax our staff, even in a limited second version of this. I haven't been sold on any benefit. We've got the OCP coming up, and the OCP will be well underway before this thing starts. So I stand opposed to this. I just do not see any value, and I do not want to waste the staff's time in chasing this any further.
Okay, thank you very much. Councillor McMath.
The bulk of the work will be done by railroad staff, and then the report itself will be proofed and brought forward from staff, so that takes away the work that you're concerned about for stretching them too thin. And what this report provides are measurables, which is something that Sooke doesn't have. So anytime we're going for grants, if we're looking to advocate for healthcare, things like that, we need those measurables. So it's a lot of work, but in the end it will pay off big time for the community, so I'm supporting it.
Okay, Councillor Bateman, and then I would like to move on, please.
So I'll just add that we have in our 5-year plan, I think $200,000 set aside for consultancy on the official community plan, and you are about to put out, I think Ms. Campbell's about to put out an RFP for the first phase of the official community plan. So to consider this particular document and baseline study as a foundational piece of this official community plan process is why I'll be voting in favor of that.
Okay, and that's where I want the report, because I don't see this tying into our OCP, so that's the clarity piece that I'm looking for. I look at it as something different. For health, and I'll just say this briefly, all that advocacy work, there was some data in terms of population and projections that were helpful, and the rest of it had to be done outside of that. When I look at the OCP, I think of how do we want the community grow, in what way. It's a bit different, but I think that's the part that we can have that defined by staff in another document. Okay, so I'll call the question then. All those in favor? Opposed? Councillor Logans and Councillor Beddoes is opposed, so the motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you,
Dr. White. Okay, I'd like to welcome our next delegation forward, and that would be Ms. Wendy O'Connor, please, with Zero Waste Sooke. And if I may have another 5 minutes refreshed on the timer, please. Welcome, and nice to see you.
Good evening, Mayor Tate and Council. My name is Wendy O'Connor, and I'm presenting on behalf of Zero Waste Sooke. And we will also hear from a Sooke resident, Zoe Menard, the Vice Chair of Surfrider Foundation Vancouver Island Chapter, as well as 2 Sooke youth that would like to say a few brief words as well. First off, thank you very much for implementing Zero Waste Sooke's earlier request in the inclusion of a 3-tiered drinking water fountain with the construction of the vault toilet at John Phillips Memorial Park this spring. It would be wonderful to continue that design inclusion with the district's upcoming plan for a whiff and spit restroom. Zero Waste Sooke first presented our 3 asks in September 2016. We came before Council again with those same requests in July 2017 and again in July 2018. It's not that we are pig-headed, although my husband would probably disagree with that, and that we won't take no for an answer, as at all 3 of those presentations, at least half of the Council seemed more than interested in hearing about these possibilities. In fact, at last year's meeting, to be precise, 2018-332, moved by Councillor Pearson, seconded by Councillor Loggins, that Council directs staff to draft a bylaw banning the use of single-use plastic bags in Sooke. It was carried in favour. Mayor Tate and Councillors Casper, Logans, Parkinson, Pearson, and Ray. Our question then is, where do we stand with this bylaw? We in Sooke could have been leaders in environmental stewardship on Vancouver Island back in 2016. However, with Council's recent declaration of a climate emergency in Sooke, mandate to be carbon neutral by 2030, that the climate be a priority to strategic planning as well as the reactivation of the Climate Change Action Committee, we feel our push for an elimination of single-use plastic bags bylaw appears to be a perfect fit. If I may quote Gord Johns, MP for Courtenay Alberni, Canada's approach to the plastics crisis has been long on rhetoric, short on legislation, and heavily invested in plastics production. We are a huge laggard on this issue. What we need instead of platitudes and forecasts of commitments that are years out is legislation and regulations implemented now. You can read the full article that is taken from in the Watershed Sentinel, Western Canada's award-winning environmental news magazine. If there is any way that Zero Waste Sooke can help staff and council with implementation, we are at your service. We would, and I will now hand over the microphone to Zoe.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Zoe Melanie Minard, and I'm here representing Surfrider. I was asked to represent Surfrider here to support Zero Waste Sooke for their great work they've been doing for the last many years. But Surfrider Vancouver Island has been observing what Zero Waste Sooke was doing in Sooke, and we were like, okay, we're not needed. As you may know, we've been working for more than 3 years on the bylaw in Victoria. We had quite some challenges in getting this bylaw implemented. You may know about the Supreme Court case. We dealt with it all, and I want to put some facts down. The average Canadian uses around 200 to 300 plastic bags a year. You can just make the calculation how many bags those are. Approximately 5% gets recycled. Recycle industry has many challenges, which is the reason why worldwide now we're choosing reducing instead of just recycling. Recycling is part of the plastic industry, is part of the petroleum industry, basically. So these are really, really tough things to deal with. At the same time, Victoria has moved forward, but you have to know there are like 60-plus countries already have regulation on single-use plastic checkout bags. So it's not like we're like pioneers anymore. We're actually really just sort of average in adopting this. I also want to reassure with implementing this kind of bylaw that in Victoria, the first 2 months, there were a lot of critical questions and people like, oh my God, how am I going to survive? Because I need those plastic bags. I don't always think about that. And I think teaching people, educating people, and taking leadership is something, something to do with the government, I think, at all levels, not just federal, not just provincial, but especially on a municipal level.
So that is your time
Okay.
on this delegation. I would like to hear from our 2 Sooke youth.
Me
though.
too.
So if
I'm
I
out.
could invite them forward, please, I'll just provide that opportunity, please.
Hello. My name is Dylan Broadbent. I live on 1700 Whiffenspit Road. Thank you for having me. Thank you for having me here today, Mayor and Council. I would like to speak from the youth's perspective. I'm here to speak to you about my future, about my little brother and sister's future, and about all the other children around Sooke's future. The decisions we make today affects the generations to come. In my research, I found that plastic bags are the most common man-made items seen by sailors at sea. The biggest problem with plastic bags is that they don't break down easily in the environment and can take up to 1,000 years to decompose. We urge the District of Sooke to eliminate the use of single-use plastic bags. We need to protect this earth. We need to start somewhere. Let's start with the bag. Thank you for your time.
Hey, thank you, sir. Could I have your name again?
Dylan Broadbent.
Broadband. Okay,
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Mr. Broadband. We really appreciate that. And I understand there's another. Okay.
Hello, Mayor and Council. Thank you for having me here. My name is Maren Clarkston. I'm a grade 11 student at EMCS, and I'm here to represent the youth perspective as well as the student perspective. The decisions we made yesterday, the actions we make today, and the world we create tomorrow is the world that my generation has to live in. I recently traveled to the Dominican Republic on a volunteer trip where people drag their garbage out to the beaches every day and wait for the tide to come in and wash it away. It sounds like a terrible thing, but I don't think we're doing much better here. And just because we hide our garbage in cans where we don't have to look at it doesn't mean it's not there. Just because it's not ending up on our front lawns doesn't mean it's not ending up on somebody else's. Just because it's not happening right here, right now, doesn't mean it's not happening. We need to stop ignoring the rest of the world's deterioration because it makes us uneasy and start preserving our own home first. Learning from other countries' mistakes and fixing our own. My friend Emma Helms is an exchange student from Germany, and unfortunately she cannot make it tonight. However, she gave me a couple words to say on her behalf. Emma tells me that the European Parliament has approved a law banning a wide range of single-use plastics such as cutlery, straws, and of course plastic bags. She says that this change in Europe has been nothing but appreciated through every country by its peoples and its lands. Significant changes may seem daunting at first, but are rewarding in its outcomes. Banning single-use plastic bags in our tiny town may seem like a small step, but it's these small steps added together that make a meaningful change. The people in power are the ones that have the power to make these crucial decisions. As an individual in the community, I feel like I can change my own lifestyle, but it is up to you guys to make a change this big. Our world is changing and we cannot be the last to evolve with it. We have to adapt, but most of all, adapt in a sustainable way. World pollution is not unstoppable, and we can no longer ignore this pressing problem. We can no longer send away our problems with our garbage. Change has to happen, and it has to happen today. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. And could I get your name again, please?
Maren Clarkston.
Clarkston?
Yes.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Clarkston. And thank you, both of you. You should be very proud for the leadership you've shown in here today. I'd like to hear from our young people a little more often, so I appreciate you taking the time. So my understanding is it's not that council does not want to move ahead on this at all. In fact, I would say it's quite the opposite. It's a case of a new council coming in and getting just completely boggled with the now and the work that's in front of us, orientation, all of those sorts of things. So we have already received sort of a listing of outstanding resolutions, and we'll be looking at that again in the up and coming. And I understand that staff have already been working on the draft bylaw, so it's expected to come to us fairly soon, I think. Do we have an idea? I can't remember now.
Your Worship, if I may, it should be coming next month, so the first regular meeting of council.
First regular meeting in May is when we had expected. So it was no case by like we don't want to get on with it or hold it up. It's just sort of caught up in the process of everything that we have. So really appreciate the reminder from everyone to have it, and it is coming forward to us anyway. Councillor Beddoes?
Yeah, I just had one question, and you may not have the answer, but I know at home for my kitchen scraps, I have biodegradable bags. Is that an option for the stores? I don't really know. I'm just asking the question.
No, I think it's a very, if I can answer that. Unless
yes, if you could please come to the microphone, and that way we can
somebody, I'd just like to know where that is, because you know, the merchants should have a say in this too, and I guess they will. Yeah. And if that's an alternative and a reasonably priced alternative, that, I don't know, might be working.
Yeah. based on research so far, it is unfortunately not an alternative. Initially, the City of Victoria was thinking of compostable bags because those, under certain circumstances, do deteriorate in a way that it doesn't leave any toxic materials in nature. But also those are not really working well because those specific climate that you need to decompose it, there's only one facility on the island that's actually doing it, plus all the compostables, also the cutlery and everything, it just ends up in the landfill. People don't recognize it. The biodegradable items, they fall into small pieces and you get microplastics, which is actually in some ways worse. In some way not, because an animal won't get caught in it, but then it's in our food, and it's in our ocean, and it's in our fish, and it's in the rivers. It gets everywhere. We can provide, more scientific research for you in this, but that's the reason why biodegradable is unfortunately not an alternative. And there are stores like I know Market and Millstream and Yates. They say that they recycle the plastic bags, but it's such a challenge to get those bags back. Plus, we've noticed that those bags actually do not really get recycled at this point because science and also price and cost.
Yeah, I understand about the plastic bags, and believe me, I'm not in favor of plastic. I see it floating in the ocean. But I'm still a little confused about the biodegradable because they say they do, and you say they don't.
Well, so if I may, this question will be answered when we actually have the bylaw.
It's a very valid question, though.
Thank you. Okay, so we understand that it's being developed and it's going to come, so we can look at those things and then get clarity on it. Many merchants locally are already not providing bags, at least they are for a cost, but they're not readily being available, and some have already rolled it out on their own, so be more to come. Okay, Councillor Logans, just briefly, and then I really want to move on with the agenda. Okay.
Oh, what's happening in the agenda that you want to get to?
It's 8 o'clock. Go ahead.
I just wanted to say thank you for bringing this forward again. I'm really grateful to hear that it's going to be on next month's agenda. And a couple things that stood out were when Mr. Broadband said the decisions we make today are affect the generations to come, and it's very true. Thanks for bringing that up. But please also let us know what you want our decisions to be. You're not too young to tell us what motions we can put forward, so please brainstorm and bring them back to us. And for Ms. Clarkson and on behalf of Emma as well, when you were saying that it's time we learn from our other countries' mistakes, I think it's also time that we learn from other countries' successes. Places like the Congo, Kenya, Rwanda, Italy, China, Bangladesh, they've already banned plastic bags as entire countries. So why can't we do it here in Sooke? So thank you very much for all your comments.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor St. Pierre.
This is just a comment in response to a letter we received from Anne Clement. And one of the things that she had to say in that I thought was really important was that this is an opportunity for council to show leadership. I think there's been a lot of talk about raising awareness and trying to convince people to do the right thing. But at this point in time, I think this council was elected specifically to move forward on these things. And this is a call to action, and they're really appreciated. And this is a chance for us to make, in some ways, it's not even, it's more than symbolic, but it is a symbol of where we want to go. And it's showing people that this is where we're going. And I really appreciate your help with that.
Thank you. Okay, so we're moving on into our public question and comment period. So this is for everything on the agenda except for the public hearing, because that has already closed and council cannot receive any further information on the public hearing. So there's 2 minutes allocated for speakers. So I would like your name and address, and please let us know which item that you are speaking to, and there will be 2 minutes on the timer. Okay, if you could please turn on the microphone. Thank you.
Ann Clements, 6683 Horn Road, and I'm speaking about climate emergency. Thank you very much for your assertion that Sooke signs on to climate emergency, and banning single-use plastics and providing public drinking fountains throughout the town seem like excellent first actions after that assertion of the state that we're in. And I think also that this is an opportunity, because we have made this declaration and now we have action, that we can begin to assert some momentum in this and get a sense that we not only are we doing these in kind of piecemeal, but that we as a community can create a kind of an agenda of what we want to do and are prepared to do. So these two things are really important as community builders in themselves, that get us focused, give us action that gives us hope, so that we have opportunities to celebrate our successes and feel the power of what we accomplish as a community. And that's where I look for leadership from you, but I also see that we have so much leadership that comes from the community groups that are active right now. And I want to know whether right away that Council can support community groups to come forward with perhaps how about we have an event in the summertime which could be something like a festival of action, which is gets us mobilized, informs and charges up our batteries and gets us dealing with this house on fire that we have. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Other speakers this evening on tonight's agenda? Okay, see none, so we'll move on to 8, I believe. 8.1, the property tax rate bylaw number 735, 2019. And over to Ms. Gray, please.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. It's fine, this is boring stuff.
This is your property taxes.
It's all right.
Don't go.
Property taxes. Property taxes. Okay, Ms. Gray, thank you.
Okay, so this is, as you know, at the April 8th council meeting, the 5-year financial plan was adopted. So the next step in the process is to adopt the property tax bylaw, which basically sets the tax rates that will collect the income required that had been agreed upon in our 5-year financial plan. So the attached bylaw is basically the calculation of the municipal rates as well as the inputs that we received from the library, regional CRD, and the hospital district with the rates that they're requiring us to collect on their behalf. So that the bylaw is for the rates needed to recover the correct amount of revenue from the municipal and for the parties we collect on behalf of. And basically I don't know how much detail you want to get into this, but there's a big, long, complicated spreadsheet, like there is for everything in accounting, that will calculate how much we can claim from each of the different, like residential, utility, industrial, business, etc. So basically, in assessing the rates that for 2019, I tried to maintain a balance between each of the industries of everyone being an approximate percentage increase of roughly the same where possible. So it's not like one industry is supplementing the other industry. So that I'm not sure, looking at past rates, I don't know that that's been done as consistently. So that was the method behind the rates that have been set. To spread out the increase amongst all the industries and in accordance with our policies. So that is the rate before you guys in the bylaw. I'm not sure if you have any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Gray. I mean, some of it is in the past has been to shift more of the increase towards business, and then sometimes it's been to shift it back amongst residents because residents make up the majority of the taxes, and so why put it all on the small businesses? So in this case, you've just taken an even spread. There's not one. Businesses are not being taxed. Well, they have a different, it's quite the spreadsheet. They have a different rate, but it hasn't changed then to...
Yes, everyone has a different rate, residential, businesses, industrial, utilities, but as far as the percentage of increase for all of those, I've tried my best to basically have all of them a roughly 7.2% increase.
Okay, so the same increase
for each
class.
Class, that's the word I'm looking for, yes, for each class represented that we collect on behalf of. So, again, that approach I thought was made the most sense for this year because we're in a year of growing and all the plans and all the development, and then you guys can make decisions for 2020 and forward if you want to change the way that we charge businesses more or industrial more or less, depending on your strategic priorities for the year. We can kind of have that conversation in 2020. So these are the numbers that we kind of came up with this year to even it out based on not really having much direction on how to displace it.
Got it. Okay. Any questions from members of council? Comments? Councillor Bateman?
Well, I have a question through you, Your Worship. It relates to the increases. We've got 7.2% for the municipality. Can you tell us what the Viral's increase is and CRD in the regional hospital district? Just asking as a taxpayer, curious.
Yes. So the I don't know if I have all. Basically, the for the library, it's a $6 increase. I don't have all the percentages, but it's a $6 increase for each resident based on there, because the assessment changes. It's a very kind of complicated conversation that we can get into, but I can give you some more information.
So that buys us a new library,
in
addition to 20-plus years of contributions.
For the CRD, it's $15 more per resident based on current assessments, and the hospital district is $1 more for residents. And so the hospital is a little bit of a different because the ratios are dictated. We don't have control over how we disperse that, so that one's kind of a standalone item, whereas the CRD, the library, and municipal, we can play around with the ratios depending on council's desires of how to collect all the revenue we need to collect.
And that, say, the Viral's $6 increase is based on the average assessed value in Sooke, right?
Correct, which is approximately just over $480,000.
Right. Thank you.
Other questions? For clarity, the CRD average, so when you take the CRD, the Capital Region Hospital District, as well as the Housing Corp all together, it's 2.3% for Sooke compared to the average being 6.1% for the region. And the reason for that is because Sooke had grown faster than the assessed growth, and the property values are increasing at a higher rate. So when you take in the higher value, the population growth, the number of folios, the distribution then brings it down. So that was the summary that I had. So that's where it actually ends up being 2.3% as opposed to someone else in another area being 6.1. And we're not impacted by anything to do with the core area sewer project, as you probably know. We don't vote on it. We don't have any funding commitment whatsoever to it. Anything else from anyone? Councillor Logans.
Can I move the recommendation, or do we have to go do third separately? Or
they can all go together. When staff are doing that, they're grouping them as so that we can vote together. We don't. Yeah, they'll separate it when we have to separate it.
Awesome. Thank you very much for everything over the past many months, staff. But I'll move the recommendation.
Okay, and that is that council give first, second, and third reading to the bylaw cited as property tax rate bylaw number 735, 2019, moved by Councillor Logan, seconded by Councillor St. Pierre. Anything further on the resolution? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? And that's carried unanimously. Thank you, Ms. Gray and staff. Okay, next up is the RCMP March report, here for information. And move receipt by Councillor Logan, seconded by Councillor St. Pierre. Anything further? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? That's carried unanimously. Item 10.1 is policy framework here, and I'll turn this over to our CAO. Is he speaking to this?
I can, Your Worship, or would you like to? Sure, go ahead.
I wasn't sure. I was looking to make eye contact. So over to Ms. Rear, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. Essentially, it's pretty much laid out in the report here, but it will allow us to categorize all our policies provide a standard template for policies moving forward, and standardize the components of the policies. It will also provide an internal process to ensure all affected departments are part of the process. And once adopted moving forward, we will endeavor to review all existing policies and bring them in line with the new standard.
No, that. I really like how you've laid this out, and then that way, I think it's timely that we capture all of these, and like you say, that every department that may be impacted has the ability to provide comment. So, fairly straightforward questions. Move adoption by Councillor Logan, seconded by Councillor McMath. All right. Any questions or clarity from anyone? No? Councillor Bateman?
I was curious, through you, Your Worship, about this is based on best practices of other municipalities, this particular policy framework?
That's correct, Your Worship.
And could you tell us which municipalities? I'm just curious.
Through Your Worship to Councillor Bateman, most municipalities are separating them out. I think this first sort of evolved because we discovered that there was admin policies and council policies that were the same names, but they weren't speaking the same languages. So this way we have a framework for operational procedures, one for council policies and administrative policies. They're going to be numbered accordingly, so probably with a C for council and A for admin, so that we can distinguish between them, and a lot of municipalities across BC are doing that.
And just to add to that, Your Worship, Ms. Machado did a lot of the work on this. I think her familiarity with other municipalities prompted her to do a fair amount of the heavy lifting on this particular report and initiative. So just to apportion credit to where it's due.
I also wanted to mention this references section at the end of the document and how significant that is in terms of assigning responsibility within the system. And I'm wondering whether we can retroactively go back and look at existing bylaws to put this kind of clarity into them. Is that a lot of work? Yeah,
well, it actually is a lot of work, but as we, Your Worship, go through refurbishing the policies, which I think is a major initiative in the Corporate Services Department, those will be covered. I think retrofitting existing bylaws that are up for review anyway might not be the best use of our time.
Okay, so I'll call the question then. All those in favor? Opposed? And carried unanimously. Thank you very much. 10.2. I just got a note that, yes, as noted, Ms. Mushada had done a lot of work. Some of it came from Langley. She'll be starting with new policies as there's time and then slowly working backwards to revamp all of them. Okay. Okay. You just never know. Okay. So 20th year anniversary events. So we have a report here, and as you know, this year marks our 20th anniversary. And so there's some ideas now that sort of been bounced around about some things that we could do or should think about doing. Some of them have been sort of the items that may be handed out, and what I'm holding here is that we've come up with a specific logo that is going out on all of our things, and this is just a packet of seeds, pollinator for attracting a blend of native wild species, so little things like this to be handed out, straws, reusable straws and the like, pencils that change colors that the kids really like, so there's some fun things like that, and some of them were also some different events. So one that comes to mind, and I kind of threw this out there and just to see if council is in agreement, is about doing a movie in the park. Council did host Starlight Cinema a number of years ago, and this was held in Ed McGregor Park, so there were different movies that were held in the evenings, and depending on the movie, sometimes the movie was the draw, but there would be a lot of young people there, and then the plan was abandoned. It didn't happen, but people are asking, like, oh, when are you going to do a movie in the park again. So it's a fun event. We talked a bit about which park would be more suitable and sort of turned attention to John Phillips because sometimes the wind can really pick up, and then that's what starts to make the whole screen move. So movies had been canceled, or you just can't watch them because of the screen. Even though it's elevated, it's difficult. And also, it tends to be warmer up here than it is there. And so that was part of the reason. There's more parking here available. Our washroom, although we don't have a washroom yet, the plan is to have one installed in John Phillips. We've given all that approval, so that feature would be there. And then also there's a lot of residents that live in this area that we would want to encourage walking to. So some of it would be that the intent would be that it can't start until dusk. It has to be dark. So in terms of what kind of a movie, we could gear it to a PG movie because it would be 8 o'clock or later that it would start. So putting on the Disney family movie, it's too late for some little kids to get out, so it would be geared more to families, though, that would bring all of their things. We could look at inviting food trucks in or something like that. And there's one community I went to that had a big New Year's event, and the city's contribution was to clean up after anything that was left behind, and they let people do their own entertainment. The city cleaned up. So I thought, okay, this is maybe something the next day or that evening members of council could come and just pick up what is left behind. I do think most people nowadays take their stuff with you, but if it's dark, they might forget something, and we don't want to have it all blowing around. So there's two different options there. An official celebration would be held in December, which would be sort of around our actual incorporation anniversary date. Have a cake, course, and then we could work on a bit of a photo gallery. We could look at commemorative art. So there's a few things in here, but if we're looking at the movie, we have to make a commitment to that because we need to start planning for it. Some of the principals that I've met with at elementary schools say that they do email out news to parents, so some way we could give them information about the event time so they could also send that information out to their students and the students' families over the summertime just to save the date. But it's something we need to start planning towards. So here's some items. Something else I thought of was for the 20th year in December, it would give us time, like what citizens can we recognize that have helped us build community. We could go through minutes, like who asked the most questions, what is the most interesting resolution we find in the archives. There's all sorts of things that we could sort of have some fun with. Which resolution is still outstanding that we need to deal with? Hopefully there's not that many. When are we getting our library? And there'll be a lot to celebrate by that time. Some of the advocacy work is already coming to light, and perhaps we'll have some other things that we can, that's December. So right now, staff have kindly put this report together so we can look to start planning some things in the meantime. So Councillor McMath and Beddoes.
I'd like to move that council authorize staff to plan and execute events in the communities to celebrate the district of Sooke's 20-year anniversary with a budget of $5,000 to come from council contingency.
Is there a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Beddoes. Is there anything you'd like to add, or would you like to speak to the resolution, Councillor McMath?
No, she said basically what
she
I was
can speak for herself.
That's right. The only thing is...
And she said...
Microphone? No, you don't. I haven't recognized.
I thought you were at...
No, I was talking to Councillor McMath as the mover. Well, I am now. Councillor McMath, please go ahead.
No.
I did turn off his microphone.
No, I didn't want to speak to it.
You didn't want to speak to it?
I wanted to move the motion. Yeah.
Okay, Councillor Beddoes.
Well, thank you very much, Your Worship. I really like the idea. I just wanted to comment on your plan. If we did some awards in the earlier part of the evening when it's light and then go to the movie after, I think it'd be a wonderful thing. There's a lot of citizens of Sooke that we could honor. I'm all for it, 100%.
Okay, so if we're going to add that element, we might need... Are you going to chair the task force?
No, just a point of clarification.
Okay.
I thought we were tasking staff to look at it. I don't think it was a hard, fast your idea of a movie, was it? Or maybe
Well, part of it is the movie, is to get going on that, because we actually have to set the date aside, we have to plan for that, and just, we're looking at probably August for that. So given the fact that we're already into May, we have to set that up and get going on it. But in terms of recognizing the residents and those sorts of things, we have time. I'm thinking that could be in December.
Yeah, that's just where I'm going with it. I have no problem with doing the movie, but I think it should be much more. And I don't know if we have to amend the motion, or do we care at this point in time?
No, at this point, it's just sort of gearing up for the actual movie and setting all that stuff.
I'm okay.
Yeah. And then I was thinking the rest, we would have a bit more time to formulate and could look at December to have something specific with just a cake and a celebration. We'd invite people. Sure. Councillor St. Pierre.
Quite like it. I agree with Councillor Beddoes that it'd be nice to add to that. One thing I would like to consider is the museum has a nice clip on history of Sooke and so on and so forth. It's not very long, but we could actually show that right before the movie instead of the adverts, which would be kind of cool. Just a little something there.
There wouldn't be really any adverts because we would be obtaining the movie, and I think it's not like a theater where you're going to get all the preamble, but we can make our own.
People might be disappointed without it. I'm saying people might be disappointed without, so we throw that in.
Council could add a council commercial.
Oh, God.
That could be fun.
So that was one thing. The other was I really like the idea of food trucks, and if this was to go well, I think it might be interesting to see if this wants to be a recurring event where vendors could actually have a chance to sell, where the community could get together. I think this could be a really nice template and pilot. Finally, I was in touch with the future commissioner for the Girl Guides, and we're going to be descended upon by 2,500 Girl Guides, which is wonderful. I think it might be interesting to see what the district can do to work with them, especially in this 20th year, because they're looking for partnerships with the district potentially in activities. And so maybe trying to get that together, ideally with a climate action focus, if I have my way.
So it almost may be appropriate to say the district has declared a climate emergency. It's our 20th anniversary. Girl Guides, go with that and let them come up with something, because I think we'll hear something amazing when it comes from them. That's my thoughts on that. Councillor Bateman.
So I had a couple of comments. One, these pollinator packets, there's some people in the community were a little concerned about where we source these packets. As it turns out, it's from Saanich Naturals, so a local company, and these are local seeds, nodding onions, pearly everlasting, common camas, and others. So that's to set people at ease around that. And then regarding this movie, I think you'll attract the most audience with a first-run movie. So there's things like How to Train Your Dragon, or Dumbo, or something called Shazam. And then there's Captain Marvel, right? So those I think can be rented. And the last one I went to was The Great Gatsby, which was a current movie back in 2016, a very windy night and cold. I remember that. Or we could look at the 20th anniversary movie back in 1999, The Matrix, Toy Story 2, Austin Powers, The Spy Who Shagged Me, Fight Club. But anyway, that's just some thinking, because it would be fun to have some engagement in the choice of this 20th anniversary movie. So I don't know how that might work.
So I think what we could do is everyone comfortable with John Phillips being the location for that? There is a higher cost because of the setup, but I just think logistically it works a little bit better. So what we can do is we can have a report, just a follow-up. Okay, we have all this secured. Here's the next pieces. Here's some movies to consider, and then we'll just have to pick one. I think I don't know. I remember when Starlight Cinema came on, like Hunger Games drew 400-some people. That was like the movie that was very popular at that time. And I saw the Johnny Depp movie. I always forget the name of it, but it was good. I liked it. No, it wasn't that one. It was he was a vampire. No, it was funny. It was good. But anyway, I don't remember what it was called now, but it'll come to me. But we can get some ideas, and and I think if we were to reboot this again next year, we could look then, here's the current, here's like the retro movie, bring back I don't know, and just Jaws. I almost did. I don't know what's terrible movie, but stayed with me.
Dark Shadows, I think, was the movie. And
yes, that's right.
Anyway, that's not why I interrupted. But the Jen tells me that we'll be updating you on progress, and any other ideas that people run by us. We'll definitely keep council up to date.
Yeah. And part of it is that we have to think of the length, and then we have to make sure that we don't violate our own noise bylaw. And licensing and all those sorts of things. So we can't do a double header, but, if due to the popularity, it could catch on. And sometimes people come out just because it's a fun thing to do. It doesn't matter what the movie is. It's just a fun event in the park. And I think it'll be a neat thing to do. And then I think we can give some more thought to the official celebration. And I just think we could have some real fun with that. That gives us more time to think of people and all those sorts of things and different events that have happened. And we would need to tap into places like the museum and the like. But we could look at running the museum's history thing just as like a preview and create a council video. Okay, so this has been moved and seconded. Anything further? I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Is carried unanimously. That's great. So I think it'll be a fun night out. Okay, so next up is Capital Region Mutual Aid Agreement. And I believe our Fire Chief Mount is speaking to this. Thank you.
Evening, Mayor and Council. This recommendation is that Council looks into supporting a new Capital Regional Mutual Aid Agreement with respect to critical resource management during major emergencies. So one of the many emergency management committees, this one, the LGEPAC, the Local Government Emergency Planning Preparedness Advisory Committee, reviewed the existing out-of-date disaster mutual aid agreement, and consensus had shown that it's time to endorse a new Capital Region Mutual Aid Agreement, referred to here as the CRMAA. It's all about building a new inclusive agreement for coordinating and sharing regional resources during major incidents. And this agreement clearly identifies kind of a new updated protocol. It goes into the need, why mutual aid is an important part of emergency management, and that disaster management at the size and scope that a local government can't handle on its own, beyond its own capability. This is why we're looking at a new agreement. I think it's important, and the facts actually identify the difference between our current kind of fire service mutual aid agreements versus what a new disaster management mutual aid agreement really is about. It's all about the need of scaling up and having multiple EOC activations within the region and being able to share resources properly. There's still an intent that our current fire service agreements with our mutual aid partners would be exhausted first before we invoke activating and scaling up this type of agreement. So it's anticipated that adjacent communities need to anticipate joining and participating in this actual new kind of agreement. The LGEPAC has requested that Council looks at endorsing the support of this before the end of this month. The frequently asked questions answer a lot of the questions, and the actual budget impacts is minimal here because it would be funded and reimbursed through a provincial task number. Take any questions now.
Okay, thank you, Chief Mount. Are there questions from members of Council? Okay, otherwise, there's a recommendation that the District of Sooke enter into the Capital Region Mutual Aid Agreement for the purpose of enhancing and providing a framework for mutual aid and critical resource coordination during an emergency within the Capital Region, and that Council authorize the Mayor and interim CAO to execute the agreement. Separated? CAO.
Your Worship, I think because the agreement that's included in your agenda package is a draft agreement, I think it might be best to amend the second motion, or the second part of the motion, to say to execute the final agreement or the final draft of the agreement, as opposed to I didn't want you to be confused about signing a draft agreement that dates back to September. The intent is to have us sign the final agreement when it comes forward.
Okay.
It's more of an endorsement this time.
So it should be then, and that council authorize the mayor and interims to execute the finalized agreement. Finalized? Correct. Okay. So moved by Councillor St. Pierre and seconded by Councillor McMath. Any questions, discussion? Okay. All those in favor? Opposed? It's carried unanimously. Thank you, Chief Mount. In your department. Okay. Next up is Climate Change Action Committee terms of reference. So following our last resolution, there was a motion then that the district's Climate Action Committee be reformed. So this is here. So in terms of the terms, just a question to staff, the terms of reference though, is this changed or is this just, it has? Okay. Okay. Clearly I haven't fully read the materials. Okay, questions, Councillor St. Pierre.
I would like an amendment potentially to the mandate and the terms of reference, and that's simply because it would fall in line with our strategic planning. Something like assist in the identification, development, implementation of climate adaptation and mitigation strategies. So essentially developing a climate action strategy.
So are you looking to add a bullet?
Yes.
Okay, so I think staff just need to be able to capture that.
It's written out.
Can you read?
Okay, I'll read it out slowly. Assist in the identification, development, and implementation of climate adaptation and mitigation strategies. That that ain't working.
They're just discussing another point.
Identification, development, and implementation of climate adaptation and mitigation strategies. I was looking through it pretty carefully, and it doesn't seem to be not explicitly, and since that's something we explicitly had in our strategic plan, I thought it'd be good to put it here, because it seems like the right committee to deal with it. No, but we're working on it, and one of the elements was in that direction. So.
Okay. Ms. Rear?
Just to clarify what Councillor St. Pierre was talking about, the mandates that are written underneath here under the terms of reference are specific to the committee. So I think what the council is referring to is more something that would be developed by staff, which would be the climate mitigation strategies. So they don't develop policy. You guys develop policy through staff. So I think maybe that one should be just left out for now. We don't want to add anything that actually is more specific to what staff would do. Does that make sense?
Yeah. If that's the case, then that's fine.
Okay. Councillor Logans?
I think just for clarity, the committee would do the work and recommend to council to have a report on or to have a strategy on XXX, and then that would, if approved, go to staff to create a strategy, right? Yeah.
Yeah. So every committee action, in order for it, or any committee meeting which resulted in action, which then would come to council to endorse before it moved on. So that's sort of it. Yeah. Yeah. Councillor Bateman.
Yeah, I'd like to see the mandate, the first bulleted item, be expanded to include the fact that our Community Energy and Emissions Plan of 2014 and the Climate Action Charter of 2008, which the district has signed on, and with the SEEP, we have an annual obligation to report back to the province, that these be foundational documents for this revised Climate Change Action Committee. So basically, inspire and sustain community commitment to achieving the district's climate action objectives as outlined in the Community Energy and Emissions Plan and the Climate Action Charter. Or to somehow otherwise get those two documents cited in the mandate.
Okay, does that make sense for staff? Does that fit this time? Okay. Councillor Beddoes?
Yeah, to your worship, to staff is, at the bottom of this, it says that council directs staff to advertise for committee membership. Who actually picks that committee in the end?
Council.
It would be council. Okay, thank
Yeah.
you.
So typically, once we decide on how many, we would send it out, post it. We would receive applications back, and council will receive and vet them internally and make that decision. Okay. Okay, so council, what staff are looking for at this point is to determine the number of members to adopt and then to advertise. So we're starting off with the numbers of members here, unless there's anything further to the mandate. But it is open in the sense that specific responsibilities of the committee include but are not limited to the following. So should the committee come up and say, this is really something that they would want to see that isn't one of these bullets, it provides that room for that to come forward. So we're looking for so many, and then I would also be looking for, so when you look under membership, there will be X members, 1 member of council to serve as chair, so I'd be looking for a member of council to volunteer for that, and blank community representatives appointed by the council, so that could be direct appointment for a particular group, say. So any thoughts around the number of members? Councillor St. Pierre?
I would suggest not too many because the group becomes unwieldy, but I'm thinking maybe 6 just because we have 7 people on council at a maximum, but I'd love to hear what other people have to think about it.
Councillor McMath?
I would like to see 10.
10?
Yeah, and the reason for that is not everyone can make every meeting, and you're going to have a lot of work to do. And so having a group that's that large will help you with delegating work. So I think 10 is the perfect number.
Okay. Councillor Bateman?
Well, I think the previous committee had 5 or so, approximately. I like the more. I agree with both of you. I mean, Councillor St. Pierre is correct in that more than 7. I think you need an uneven number, maybe. Becomes an assembly. But 10 or 11 is also a good number because in my experience running the previous committee, people did not show up, and we were challenged for quorum at least once.
Okay.
To your worship, 9.
9.
That's splitting the difference. 7 to 11, 9. Perfect.
9
Sounds
plus, you're adding in a counselor, so that's 10. 9 is like the fellowship. Councillor Logans?
Is it true that that's just a maximum and we can have up to? Yeah. So if we said 10 and we only have 5 on the committee, that's okay?
Yeah, so I think the membership will consist of up to 10 members, including, right? So 10 including would include the chair, and then there's a blank under community.
And then plus staff as well, as they can, as the primary contacts.
Yeah, so staff are not included in the membership. They're there to provide resource. Okay, so we're looking at, I see a hand from Mr. Schaefer.
If a quorum is a bare majority of the members, and a bare majority of all the members and not a majority of the people who attend, you'll need a majority of the entire committee, which means a minimum of 6 if it's 10. Just say. Yeah.
But that is if we select 10.
Right.
But if the advertisement goes out and 6 are selected, then quorum would be 4. Is that correct?
Yes, we clerks tend to want to have things nailed down, though. So, but you're right. It would be a member, however many people got appointed, whether or not you would wish to fill that committee at a later date.
And I only ask because this is the situation with the former housing committee, because we had up to 15 perhaps members, but we never had that many people interested in the membership, so we didn't fill the 15, and so our quorum was 4 or 5. So yeah, thank you for clarifying.
Ms. Rear?
So just to clarify, I have that under membership, it'll say the membership will consist of up to 10 members, including 1 member of council to serve as chair, and then up to 9 community representatives. And the quorum issue will be addressed as under the very last line on the first page of the terms of reference, where it states that the meeting rules and procedures will be in accordance with the council procedure bylaw, which has information on quorum.
Okay, so sorry that, oh, I see. Okay, never mind. I just answered my own question. Okay, good. Okay, so up to 10, we got it? Point 10.
And just to add that under the motion that's written up on the board should just be the second point should say adopt the amended Climate Change Action Committee terms of reference.
So it should be then that council appoint 10 up to 10 members to the Climate Change Action Committee. So can I have a motion? I'll start with that. Moved by Councillor McMahon. Seconded. So council appoint up to 10 members of the Climate Change Action Committee. Okay, so that's been moved by Councillor McMath and seconded by Councillor Bateman. Any discussion further on that part? See none. All those in favor? Opposed? It's carried unanimously. That council adopt the proposed Climate Change Action Committee terms of references as amended. Moved by Councillor McMath, seconded by Councillor St. Pierre. Anything further? All those in favor? Opposed? It's carried unanimously. And then finally, that council directs staff to advertise for committee membership. Moved by Councillor McMath and seconded by Councillor St. Pierre. All those in favor? Opposed? It's carried unanimously. Okay? Done. How about that? Okay, so moving along. Correspondence package. So I'm looking for a motion to receive and file the correspondence. Moved by Councillor McMath, seconded by Councillor St. Pierre. All those in favor? Opposed? It's carried unanimously. And is there anything here that really requires action? Councillor Beddoes?
Item G, O, and T.
Okay, is G the first one for anyone? More? Okay.
Items. I tried to. C, D.
Okay, now I have to scroll through this again, so I'm just going to do that because I can't go back and forth. So
Can we just do line by line?
Yes, I'm just going to stroll. So we have a nice letter from the mayor of Natori. The exchange students visited and we held lunch, which was great. The film commission. We have an invitation from Cicino School. I was not able to attend, but I'm going to follow up on a different week. I suggest you do. One from Falun Gong.
I was wondering about that one. Given our signing on to the Charter for Compassion when we were candidates, is this something we want to follow up on or just let it go?
Just tend to receive and file them.
Yeah.
I look to make proclamations of things that are very specific in Sooke, often. So there's one. I had a follow-up from CFAC's interview, and of course there's much more information on Highway 14 coming out, the vital signs report, a letter on climate. Okay, this is the one on the potholes, which is...
Could I quickly note the vital signs piece? Sandra Richardson has offered to come out and make a presentation, and I'd be very interested in that.
Okay, so we could look to have that as it would be at an upcoming committee of the whole. And we'd be looking at probably Realistically, it would be like either the summer or September. So we'll look for that. Okay. Does that need to be in a resolution? Okay, so that'll be that council directs staff to connect with Sandra Richardson from the Victoria Foundation for a presentation to council in either the summer or fall of 2019. Moved by Councillor Bateman, seconded by Councillor St. Pierre. Any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? It's carried unanimously. For the potholes, though, I think that we need to forward this on to the Capital Regional District, and just as this falls within their jurisdiction, they need to follow up and look into this and advise on this. Councillor Beddoes?
Sure. I that was certainly one of my recommendations why I asked for it to be pulled, is get hold of the CRD. I don't know, BC Park seemed to have something to do with it. I think we also should advise the RCMP that we need some policing up there in the summertime. The letter indicates that it's a bit lacking, and I don't know whether that's true or not, but I think it needs to be brought to the RCMP's attention.
Yeah.
And I don't know where our bylaws people fit into this equation. Is there something they can do?
I think anything motor related is more
RCMP.
So, Ms. Rear?
Thank you, Your Worship. I just wanted to point out on page 114 that it has been CC'd to some of those partners like BC Parks and CRD Parks and Environmental Services, and but nothing here about the RCMP if we wanted to do that.
Okay, I would just want a response from the CRD. So although they've been CC'd, I think it's the case this has come to our attention now, and can you please respond to us so that we can then say back to the resident, look, thank you for bringing this to our attention. We've, so then that we forward this to both the RCMP and to the CRD and just request a response on that. Okay, so Councillor Beddoes will make that motion then, that this correspondence be forwarded to the CRD and the RCMP, and that we ask for a response, and also what will they do this summer? Yeah. So let's move by Councillor Beddoes, seconded by Councillor Bateman. Any discussion?
I was going to make a friendly amendment.
Okay, what's the amendment?
Well, the park operator is RLC Parks Services, who are up in the Malahat somewhere. And I think they need to be copied in on this letter.
But this is the potholes. This is all the CRD, though.
Well, this is the Potholes Provincial Park. So that's a provincial park we're speaking of. And then the regional park is on the far side. So there's two jurisdictions.
Okay, so include the third, and we'll get a response from all of three of them. And just say, look, we're aware of this activity. What are you doing about it? Okay? On the motion? What?
Just curious as to whether or not Park Watch had any role to play in this, because theoretically they're patrolling and trying to keep this sort of thing from happening. I mean, that may be just during the day, but I'm wondering if they should also be brought into the loop.
Let's start with these three, because really it's their jurisdiction. If people are doing donuts in this, it could be like Park Watch's eyes and ears, but we're looking for the RCMP to act. They actually need to bring somebody out and stop this type of behavior. And some of the other things need to follow on really those. And they can, if they're engaging Park Watch, they should engage and just say, look, you need to spend more time here. Okay? Let's start with that. Okay? Calling the question. All those in favor? Opposed? And that's carried unanimously. We have some pieces on child find. Where is this coming from? Oh, the Coast Forest Sector Revitalization. There's a webinar here that you can sign up for. Grant deadline for the CRD Arts. Regional Vegetation Management Strategy. We've seen that a few times already, so that's just another back. We have a wonderful letter here praising our fire department, which is great, from a family here. So well done to our fire zone, or our fire department. I was looking at fog zone at the same time. So that's coming through here. We have some feedback on an ALC. Yes, Councillor Beddoes.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I think we need to respond to this letter to the Parsons. We recommended that it come out of the ALC, and they, of course, turned it down. And now they're asking us to take it a step further, and I just don't think we can. We have rendered a decision, sent it to them, and that's all we can do. There's nothing's changed in the matter. So I would like to see us send a reply back to the Parsons that regrettably there's nothing further we can do on this file. But they need to be heard, that we actually listen to them. That's just my opinion.
So I think that'll be the response then. So if Councillor St. Pierre?
I had a long conversation with the Parsons, and I've looked at the entire file quite carefully. I agree with Councillor Beddoes. The staff did an excellent job in actually interpreting our decision and actually putting forward recommendations the LC supported by the OCP and all the rest. I don't know that we can actually do better in a subsequent letter, unfortunately. I do know that we could, if we wish to, send a letter reiterating our first decision. I actually believe the ALC in this particular case is making a decision based on not necessarily food security in Sooke, not necessarily the best interests agriculturally speaking of Sooke. I've looked at that property. I've looked at the parcel that they're actually hoping to take out. It's not agricultural to speak of. It could be, as they pointed out in their letters and documentations, be made so with immense amounts of effort, but that would only happen if they were on site. I don't think that it's in the community's best interest to let the decision of the LC stand in this particular case, at least not without reiterating our position. And that would cost us nothing except sending a similar letter to the Parsons, saying that we do support you, we do believe that what you're putting forward is good for the community and good for food security. And it costs us nothing more. And instead of an excuse, it's something they could put into their documentation, showing that the district stands by its decision and believes that this is the right way to go.
Okay, so what you're suggesting is that we send a reply back just to the Parsons?
To the Parsons, we can't actually put I've already inquired, we can't put anything through the portal to the ALC.
No.
Because that's not even a possibility.
Yeah.
But the Parsons can actually put forward additional documentation if they wish to do so before May 1st.
Okay. So then it would be that council directs staff to write a response to the Parsons reaffirming the district's
position
of Sooke's council's position on and its support for the exclusion.
And commitment to food security.
Okay, so if I may have a motion, Councillor St. Pierre's moving that, and Councillor McMath has seconded that. Staff got that? It's on the webcam. Okay. All the question then, all those in favor? Opposed? It's carried unanimously. The next one then is there's just a thing on an AVIC resolution that we've supported, and then we have a request to attend the annual ceremonial review for the Navy League. However, the majority of us will be attending FCM that weekend, so perhaps I will check in with Councillor Parkinson to see if she expressed that she may be able to attend that, so we'll follow up on that. And information on wildfire again, and then we have, it's like profanity here, on the banning of single-use bags, which is coming forward. And we have, so this is for Georgia Park Elementary? Yes. Is that it? Councillor Beddoes?
I think we send these kids some pins.
Yes. So they are looking...
I don't know how many we got. 5 or 30 is what they're asking for.
They're asking for 30, so we'll send 30 pins and a little card. So I'd like to do that. So that council...
Make that motion.
Yep. Councillor Beddoes will make a motion that council directs staff to provide the mayor with 30 pins and a card to... I'd like to write little notes to send to the students of Georgia Park Elementary and Campbell River. Moved by Councillor Beddoes, seconded by Councillor McMath. Anything further? All those in favor? Opposed? It's carried unanimously. Okay. Correspondence. St. Pierre.
This won't take long. The item P from Derek Peach about the safe drug supplies. It was a heartfelt letter about what had happened, to his daughter, I believe. I think it could be nice to send him a letter informing him of the AVIC decision and the resolution, and that this council will continue to support that at UBCM. Or I don't think we can commit to that, but that we'll be taking it up at UBCM.
Okay, so council directs staff to email Derek Peach to advise that council did support the AVIC resolution and looks forward and will be advocating the resolution at the upcoming UBCM conference.
Yes.
Moved by Councillor St. Pierre, seconded by Councillor McMath. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously.
Thank you.
Okay, so one comment just on correspondence that would be helpful from members of council is, as you're reading this, can you email me your resolution? Because then I think it would just be helpful if we had them, and I'm not trying to write it on the spot, because now what'll happen is tomorrow staff are going to be reviewing the webcast several times to make sure that they got it all right. I think it would just save, like if you know, this is a great idea, we have the technology, just write out the resolution and forward it, and then I think that would just help us.
Concur.
Yeah. Or even provide it to our corporate staff. Should that be to, like, who exactly? Because I know that, like, some of our staff, you know, they're on vacation. Like, who would be the best? Should we send it to both our corporate and our deputy corporate officer?
Your worship, just to cover all boundaries, we could just send it to corp@sooke.ca.
Oh, corp@sooke.ca?
Yep.
Okay. So if you did that, actually, that's easier, because then I don't get all the emails in terms of managing my inbox, is send it to corp@sooke.ca, and then in the subject line, maybe just put correspondence item B, and then your motion, and then they can gather all of this, preferably not in the hour before the meeting, but over they can gather it, have it all available, and good. Great. Like it. Perfect. Okay.
Just a quick request.
Yes.
I don't know if this is the right time, but it would be wonderful if, when the agenda was put together in the correspondence, if the letters were put with each item, because I find myself scrolling through 79 pages.
No, I don't know that we have the capability to do that.
Well,
like, you're meaning to scroll one so you can click on, like, the rest of the agenda?
No, not even that. Not even that. Putting an A on, you know, item A and a B on item B. If that's possible, that'd be great.
It's like a make work thing.
God, no.
You're just going to have to scroll.
That's a make work thing.
Okay, so here's a tip, Councillor St. Pierre. What you can do is, once you open this, save it to your iBooks, and then you can bookmark them. So once you open it as a PDF out of iCompass, then you can save it into your iBooks, or not iBooks, but your bookshelf thing, the reader book thing. Is it iBooks? Okay, and then you can actually bookmark.
I just killed a tree.
Okay, moving on. Okay, so we all have our ways. Mayor and council updates. So I shared one briefly. Is there any updates from members of council? Councillor Bateman.
A debrief around the convention we attended. I also attended the Victoria Family Court and Youth Justice Committee last week, and that committee deals with some really hardcore issues regarding young people in the region: opioids, drugs and addiction, mental health, sexual assault, anxiety, homelessness, and it's pretty hardcore appointment. You've done it, Councillor Logans. Me too. And you too, yeah. So it's quite an education, and the common theme seems to be everything's underfunded, understaffed, overwhelmed systems, buckling under the pressure of numbers and worsening crises. So the good news that came out were from the guests who attended this meeting last week, Island Health's Integrated Mobile Crisis Response Team. And this is a small group that are activated at the at request of police departments and local health authorities and school counselors, and they roll in and deal on a case-to-case basis. And I could go on. There were a couple of other good things. The Reimagining Masculinities Conference, there's funding for that. That's at UVic in the fall, and this is a place where men are dealing with the legacy of the patriarchy and the Me Too movement and these sort of inherited peer-approved behaviors which are no longer acceptable here in 2019. So it's really, thank you for the appointment, because it's really, as a man without children, it's quite remarkable what kids are dealing with these days. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bateman, for attending. Yeah. Other comments or updates? Okay, so a reminder to those of you who have not replied yet that Sooke is on Saturday, and we've committed to this event, so we need, it would be great if councillors are available. The 10 to 12 shift has been fully taken, so we're looking for afternoon commitments from 12 to 4.
I'll be down there all day.
So you can float by, well, yeah, but, you know, if you can find it, you need to stand at the booth, though, for a while. Okay.
If it looks like it's empty, I'll go stand there.
Okay.
If it's busy, if too many people there, then I'll go on to the Lions booth.
Okay. Good. And I'll likely be there in I'll move to the afternoon. I was going to go in the morning. I'll shift to the afternoon. Yeah, there's shift in the email. So, okay. Good. Okay, so moving on, we have a notice of motion here for debate tonight, and that is recognition of Judith Ann Gatto, and that's from Councillor Parkinson. That council recognize the efforts of Judith Ann Gatto for her contribution to the community for the 25 years in organizing the Sooke Canada Day celebrations by providing and presenting a plaque with funding to come from council contingency. Moved it by Councillor McMath, seconded by Councillor Logans. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Is carried unanimously. And then for notice from Councillor Beddoes, we have one that council directs staff to research and report back on options for municipal community garbage collection. So that's notice. We will debate this further at the next meeting. And we also have our next one from Councillor St. Pierre, and that is that council directs staff to provide a map of the Bell Vista Phillips and Highway 14 intersection in order to identify potential public parking opportunities on district lands. So that is here for notice and up for debate at the next meeting. There's one more from Councillor St. Pierre that he managed to get to me, so I'm going to read it out tonight for notice. And that is to bring forward an amenities policy/bylaw within a year. Request staff to bring forward an amenities policy/bylaw within a year. And note, it's within a year, so not this year, but within a year. Good. Okay, that's for notice. Okay? And so that, I believe, concludes tonight's agenda. So now I'm looking for a motion to close the meeting to the public under Section 91C, F, and G as it pertains to labor relations, law enforcement, and litigation or potential litigation. Moved by Councillor Bateman, seconded by Councillor St. Pierre. All those in favor? Opposed? It's carried unanimously. And